I moved to a new city with my 8-year-old daughter Lily a few months ago. We settled into a charming Victorian apartment. It wasn't modern, but it was affordable and close to her new school. The neighborhood felt alive, but I always thought something was strange about it. On the second night, I heard a soft giggle coming from the hallway. I figured it was kids playing, but we were the only family on our floor. I brushed it off. It was probably just my imagination. Weeks passed and things only grew creepier. The au pairs we hired never lasted. Each one left after a month with no explanation. I thought about asking them why, but I felt anxious. I thought no one would believe me. It felt like I was losing a grip on reality. One night, around midnight, I heard the giggling again. I thought it might be Lily, so I checked her room. She was fast asleep. The noise seemed closer now. I stood in the dim light of the hallway, my heart racing. Were the neighbors playing a prank? I looked out the window, but the streets were empty. It was too quiet. The next day, I met the new au pair. Her name was Mia. She seemed nice, but I caught her staring down the hallway. It reminded me of my own unease. When I asked if she heard anything, she shrugged. I felt silly for asking. Maybe I was just tired from the move. Still, I kept hearing whispers. They echoed through the walls. It felt like the apartment had a heartbeat. The noises grew louder, and I felt like someone or something was watching us. Sometimes I'd peek out my door, expecting to see someone, but there was nothing. Each time, I felt cold. The final straw came one evening when I found Lily talking to an empty corner of her room. A chill ran down my spine. My voice trembled as I asked her what she was doing. She smiled at me like I was being silly. "Just playing with my friends, Mommy," she said. I think I laughed, but my heart thudded. I wanted to ignore it all, but it was getting harder. The laughter rang in my ears at odd hours. Lily seemed more involved with her friends, and it scared me. I felt like I was losing touch with reality. I decided to confront this. I opened my door and stepped out into the hallway again. I asked, "Why are you talking to your friends?" But when I looked around, they were nowhere to be seen. I went back to Lily's room. She wasn't there. I felt panic set in. The apartment was too silent. I rushed to the living room looking for her. I called out her name, my heart racing. No reply. Suddenly I heard that giggle again, this time closer than ever. I turned towards the sound, but there was nothing. Just shadows swirling in the corners. I felt a knot in my stomach. I realized then that maybe I wasn't alone anymore. When I couldn't find Lily, a surge of fear washed over me. I could feel the walls of the old apartment pressing in. The darkness seemed to expand, consuming the corners of the living room. I told myself to stay calm, but my hands trembled as I felt my way back to the hallway. "Lily!" I called again. My voice echoed. It was almost mocking. I raced to the bathroom, checking every closet, every corner. Nothing. I felt the panic rising like bile in my throat. Then, as if taunting me, I heard the giggle once more. This time, it was followed by the sound of little footsteps, fast and hurried. Against my instincts, I followed the noise. I moved towards the back of the apartment, where there was a tiny storage room we had barely inspected. The door was slightly ajar, and I could see the faint flicker of movement inside. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open. The room was dark, cluttered with forgotten furniture. I stepped inside, wincing at the dust motes swirling in the air. "Lily?" The giggling stopped abruptly. I squinted into the shadows. Just then, I saw her. She stood at the end of the room, her back to me, staring at something I couldn't see. "Lily," I whispered harshly, moving closer. When she turned, her expression was calm, almost eerie. "Mommy, I was just showing my friend the treasure," she said, pointing to the wall behind her. I felt a chill run down my spine. There was nothing there, just peeling paint and cobwebs. "What treasure, sweetheart?" I asked. But part of me was scared to hear the answer. "The shiny one. The one that only I can see." Her eyes sparkled with excitement, and I forced a smile, though my heart hammered in my chest. In that moment, I realized the connection between Lily and the strange happenings. "Let's go back into the living room, okay?" I said, trying to sound reassuring. She nodded, but as we turned to leave, something flashed in the darkness. A shape darted across the far wall, just out of the reach of the light. I froze. The feeling of being watched intensified. I glanced back at Lily, who seemed completely unaware, lost in her own world. "Did you see that?" I asked, though I was terrified of the answer. "What, Mommy?" she replied, tilting her head. I couldn't tell if she was genuinely oblivious, or if I was the one losing my mind. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind us, plunging us into darkness. I screamed, my voice slicing through the silence. I grabbed Lily's hand tightly, my heart racing. "Stay close." I searched for the doorknob, my hands shaking as I fumbled in the dark. The giggles began again, a chorus of laughter surrounding us. It was deafening. If I didn't get out soon, I feared I might go insane. And then, everything went quiet. I finally found the knob and pushed the door open. It swung wide, flooding the small room with light, revealing nothing. Just empty space where my fears had taken form. I stepped into the hallway, pulling Lily with me. I felt an urgent need to leave, to figure out what was happening. But the laughter faded to a whisper, brushing past my ear as we stumbled back into the safety of the living room. That's when I felt it, a cold breath at my neck. "You're not alone, Mommy." My blood ran cold. I turned but found nothing, just shadows in the corners. I needed to uncover the truth about this place before it swallowed us whole. The air in the living room felt thick, as if it had weight. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I held Lily's small hand tightly, trying to ground myself in the reality of her presence. "Let's check the front door," I said, hoping to escape. We stepped cautiously toward the entryway, but as I approached, a cold draft slammed the door shut with a loud bang. Panic surged through me again. I gripped the knob desperately. "Open, please," I yelled, but it wouldn't budge. Lily looked up at me, wide-eyed. "Mommy, I don't want to play anymore." "Neither do I, honey," I replied, forcing a smile. I didn't want her to pick up on my fear. I turned back and scanned the room, searching for an alternative exit. Then I noticed something on the wall beside the door. A faint outline of what looked like a handprint. Not ours. It was small, almost delicate, and its edges were smudged as if someone had pressed their hand there long ago. My stomach twisted. "Did you—" I hesitated. "Did you touch that, Lily?" She shook her head. "No, Mommy. That's the treasure." Her voice was light, carefree, but the way she spoke chilled me. "Treasure?" I said softly, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. She nodded enthusiastically and giggled again, but this time it was undercut by an unsettling echo. The sound morphed into whispers filling the room. "Find us! Find us!" they seemed to chant, growing louder with each second. I looked around, eyes darting back to the dark corners. "Who are you?" I called out, desperation creeping into my voice. Suddenly the whispers stopped as abruptly as they had begun, replaced by silence. A deep, heavy silence that felt like a weight pressing against my chest. Then I noticed the shadows shifting again. A figure was barely visible, standing just beyond the threshold of the light near the window. My heart raced as I squinted into the dimness. "Lily, stay back!" I shouted. But she didn't move. She smiled and waved at the shadow. "Hi, friend. Want to see the treasure?" "Lily! No!" I reached out, but before I could grab her, the figure darted back, disappearing into the darkness of the room. "Mommy!" She laughed, blissfully unaware of the danger. "Don't go near it!" I shouted, panic surging again. I could feel everything closing in. The walls shaking, the shadows whispering. I had to get her out. I gripped Lily's hand tighter and pulled her towards the front door. It needed to open. That's when I saw her, a girl standing by the hallway, pale and gaunt, with large eyes reflecting the dim light. She looked so familiar. My breath caught in my throat. "Help me," she mouthed, but I couldn't move. I stumbled backward, pulling Lily with me. "Get away from her!" I screamed, but the girl just watched, her lips forming a smile that chilled my blood. And then, without warning, the lights flickered before plunging us into darkness again. Everything went black. I could hear Lily whimpering beside me, and I felt utterly helpless. In that moment, I understood. I need to know the truth about this place. And fast. I blinked in the darkness, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The silence was suffocating, and I squeezed Lily's hand tighter, feeling her tremble. "It's okay, sweetheart," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I believed my own words. Suddenly the lights flickered back on. My heart dropped. The girl was gone, but the oppressive atmosphere remained, thick and stifling. It was as if the very walls held their breath, waiting. "Mommy, I want to go home," Lily said, her voice small. I swallowed hard. "Me too, babe." "Let's find a way out," I replied, scanning the room. The handprint on the wall seemed more sinister now, as if it were judging me. I noticed that the whispers had returned, soft and persistent. "Find us." "Stop it!" I yelled, frustration boiling over. I couldn't let this consume me. "You're not real!" But the whispers only intensified, swirling in the air like a tangible fog. I steeled myself, remembering that I needed to keep Lily safe. "We'll find that treasure, okay?" "The real treasure," I said, an idea forming in my mind. I took a deep breath and turned to the hallway where I had seen the girl. "Let's go check there," I suggested. Lily nodded, trusting me. Together, we moved toward the dark passage. As we approached, a sense of dread washed over me. The shadows seemed to cling to the walls, and the air felt charged with tension. I glanced back at Lily, who was staring wide-eyed into the darkness, as if she could see something I couldn't. "Stay close," I reminded her. And I moved forward, inching down the hallway. My heart raced with each step. I could hear my breath echo, mixed with the whispers that still floated around us. We turned a corner, and I spotted a door slightly ajar at the end. My instincts screamed at me to stay away, but a strange pull urged me closer. "What's behind there?" I wondered aloud, though I had no intention of getting too close. That's when I noticed something glittering on the floor. I crouched down to pick it up. A small, tarnished locket, cold in my palm. I opened it, and the breath caught in my throat. Inside was a picture of the girl, the same girl who had silently begged for help moments ago. "Lily," I said, my voice trembling. "Look." I held the locket out for her to see. A smile broke out on her face, but it felt wrong. "It's pretty, Mommy. Can we keep it?" "No, we can't." I quickly closed it and shoved it back in my pocket. "We have to get out of here." The whispers grew louder again, angry now. "Find us! Find us!" They felt like claws, digging into my mind. I turned to Lily and pulled her close, ready to run back to the living room. But just then, the door at the end of the hallway swung wide open, revealing a dark figure standing in the threshold. I couldn't see the face, but the figure took a step forward, and I froze. Someone was in the house. My heart pounded in my chest as the figure moved into the light. It was a woman, her features obscured by shadows. But there was something unsettling about her presence. She didn't say a word. She just stood there, watching us with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, my voice raw and trembling. I felt Lily grip my hand tighter, her small fingers digging into my skin. The woman took another step forward, and I instinctively pulled Lily behind me. The whispers in the air became a high-pitched hum, growing louder, as if urging me to flee. "We need to go now," I commanded, no longer a suggestion, but a necessity. But before I could turn, the woman spoke, her voice echoing in the hollow hallway. "Help me find them." The words hung in the air, heavy and urgent. My heart raced with confusion. Was she talking about the girl? "Who are they?" I asked, keeping my eyes on her. I wanted to understand, but dread clawed at my mind. "What do you want?" "Time is running out." She stepped closer, and I could see the desperation etched on her face. "You must help them before it's too late." A shiver ran down my spine. I felt trapped. The walls pulsed with a sense of foreboding. "Lily, we need to go. Now." I started backing away, but the woman's gaze locked onto mine. "You don't understand," she insisted, her voice rising. "They're counting on you." Suddenly the lights flickered again, plunging us into darkness for a brief moment. I lost sight of the woman, panicking. "Stay close, Lily," I yelled, reaching for her. When the lights came back on, the hallway was empty. The door was wide open, swinging gently on its hinges. I felt a wave of nausea hit me. Had I imagined her? Or had she vanished into thin air? Before I could process what had just happened, the whispers became a chaotic chorus, filling my ears with terror. "Find us! Help us!" The cries pierced through my mind, relentless and painful. I took a deep breath and pulled Lily towards the open door. "We have to go outside. We need to get help." I kept scanning the room, half expecting the woman to reappear. As we stepped through the doorway, something caught my eye on the ground. A small shoe, eerily familiar. I knelt down to pick it up, recognizing it as the same style as the girl's. My heart sank. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily whimpered beside me. I hugged her tight, but I didn't know what to say. The sense of urgency grew. I had to find out what was happening, but now it felt like we were caught up in something much bigger than I understood. Just as I stood up, the whispering returned, but this time it was clearer. "You must find the treasure. It will lead you to us." With no clear plan and my heart racing, I turned to the adjoining room, my instincts screaming at me that the answers lay ahead. I gripped Lily's hand firmly. "Stay close, and don't let go." The whispers echoed louder as we stepped into the unknown. As we ventured into the room, the oppressive stillness settled around us, a heavy fog of anxiety. I flicked the switch on the wall, but nothing happened. The room remained shrouded in shadow, and I felt a prickle of fear crawl up my spine. "Can we go home now?" Lily's voice trembled, her eyes wide and searching mine for reassurance. I wanted to tell her it would be all right, but I didn't believe it myself. "Just a little longer," I whispered, forcing myself to sound brave. I needed to find answers. The woman's plea echoed in my mind. They were counting on me. "We'll figure this out together." I pulled Lily further into the room, where I noticed a large, ornate mirror hanging on the wall. Its surface was slightly cracked, as if it had seen too many years and too much sorrow. I hesitated, a sense of foreboding washing over me. The whispers surged again, a tidal wave in my mind. "Look closely. See what is hidden." I approached the mirror cautiously, heart thumping with each step. When I looked into it, at first, I saw only our reflections. But then, a flicker caught my eye. A shadowy figure behind us. Panic surged as I spun around, but nothing was there. "Mommy?" Lily tugged on my sleeve, her voice edged with fear. It's okay," I assured her, though I felt anything but. I turned back to the mirror. The figure was gone. My mind raced. Was I imagining things? Or was something truly lurking just out of sight? "Look," Lily pointed, and I felt my heart skip a beat as I turned back to the mirror. This time, the surface seemed to ripple like water. I raised a hand to touch it, and as my fingers grazed the surface, images began to form. Fragments of faces, places, and scenes that felt achingly familiar yet distant. "Mommy, don't!" Lily's shout pulled me back, and I jerked my hand away. Something inside me knew I needed to be careful. But what was it trying to show me? Before I could collect my thoughts, a loud crash echoed from the adjoining room, shaking the walls. I froze, dread filling my chest. "What was that?" I whispered, frantically scanning the space. "Stay behind me, Lily," I commanded, my voice firm despite the fear clawing at my throat. We both held our breath as the wooden door creaked open, revealing a dark passage. The whispers faded momentarily, replaced by a suffocating silence. My eyes darted around the room, then back to the mirror. An inexplicable urge drew me towards it again. I took a step closer, ripping my gaze from the door just as another crash echoed through the house. Everything seemed trapped in time as I felt a tug at my consciousness, urging me to stay focused. "We should leave," I muttered. But a small part of me was still transfixed, searching for answers. And then I saw it, a shadow darting behind the mirror, the unmistakable outline of a small child. My breath hitched. Lily, did you see that? See what? My heart raced as I felt the weight of the moment. I have to know. Just a little longer, I said, inching closer as the whispers returned, urgent and desperate. Help us! Find the treasure! The door behind us slammed shut, and the echo hung in the air like a warning. As the room plunged into darkness once more, I realized we were no longer alone. I spun around, fear flooding my veins. Someone was in the room with us. Before I could react, a chilling laugh erupted from the shadows, cold and cruel. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. That laugh echoed around us, taunting and sinister. I shot a gaze at Lily, her eyes wide with terror. Stay close to me, I said, gripping her hand tightly. The air felt electric with danger, and my instinct screamed at me to run. But where to? The room felt like a trap. In the darkness, shapes shifted, and my focus sharpened. Who's there? I demanded, forcing my voice to hold steady. The shadows just danced, mocking my fear. I could barely see, but I sensed movement just beyond the range of light. We know you're hiding, I called out, wishing my words were stronger, more commanding. Then my heart dropped. The whispers returned, mingling with the laugh, creating a cacophony that seemed to swirl around me. Help us! Find the treasure, they urged, their tone desperate. Mommy, I don't like this, Lily whimpered, her small fingers squeezing mine. I know, I murmured, trying to breathe through the chaos in my mind. Just hold on. I squinted into the dark, searching for the source of the voice. If there was a child trapped here, I had to help. Is anyone there? I tried again, softer this time, hoping to reach out, to connect. Silence. Then, directly next to me, an object clattered to the floor. I jumped, my heart racing. I turned slowly, startled, and then caught sight of something in the shadows. A doll, tattered and grungy, staring up at me with glassy eyes. Is this yours? I asked Lily, but she shook her head violently. No, Mommy, it's creepy. Ignoring the chill that ran down my spine, I reached for it, curiosity overpowering caution. As soon as my fingers made contact with the doll, a jolt passed through me. The air grew thick, and the whispers surged again, frantic now. They need you. It's not safe. What do you mean? I breathed, my heart pounding as the doll seemed to call to me. Suddenly, a flickering light filled the room. I turned back to the mirror just in time to see images flash across its surface, scenes of despair, a child weeping, dark figures looming. My heart sank as I recognized the echo of Lily's face reflected back. Mommy! She cried, her voice a shriek now. I'm scared! I want to go home! I grabbed her arm, shaking the doll from my grip. It fell to the floor with a soft thud, and the light dimmed, plunging us back into shadow. The laugh roared in my ears now, a sinister chant echoing off the walls. Help us! Find the treasure! A chorus of voices merged into a furious call as a figure stepped out of the shadows, tall and menacing. I couldn't turn away, even as fear paralyzed my body. Each heartbeat echoed loud in my ears as I faced the specter, a twisted grin spreading across its features. Welcome, it hissed, voice dripping with malice. Lily squeezed my hand tighter, her small body trembling. I could feel her fear, thick as the darkness surrounding us. Then, just as suddenly, the lights flickered back on, illuminating everything. Fleeting glimpses of escape, a window, the door behind us now ajar. But at that moment, the figure lunged forward, and I felt the air shift dangerously. This is just the beginning, it snarled, ready to pounce. With a jolt, I grabbed Lily and pulled her toward the open door. We burst into the passage, neither of us looking back, fueled by pure instinct and raw adrenaline. We sprinted down the dimly lit corridor, my heart racing, and Lily's tiny feet barely kept pace behind me. The laughter and whispers followed, echoing off the walls like a twisted chase. I didn't know what was real anymore, but every instinct told me to run. Where do we go? Lily panted, tears streaming down her cheeks. I couldn't offer answers. My mind was tangled in confusion. The hall stretched endlessly, doors lining each side, their surfaces warped and dusty. Every step I took felt hollow, as if we were running in circles. Just keep going, I urged, pushing her forward. Then, I spotted it. A flickering light at the end of the corridor. Relief flooded through me for a second, before the laughter crept back in, wrapping around me like a shroud. A door stood ajar at the corridor's end. It felt like both a promise and a threat. I reached for the handle, my fingers trembling. Push it open. Get out. But just as I stepped forward, a loud crash reverberated from further down the hallway. I spun around to see shadows shifting more violently, almost as if they had come alive. "Mommy!" Lily yelped, gripping my leg. I was about to tell her to stay close when a memory flashed through my mind. The doll and the voices pleading for help. What were they really asking for? Find the treasure? Was it worth the risk? Without thinking, I pulled Lily into the room, slamming the door behind us. The darkness felt thick. I fumbled for a light switch, but the room was just as dim as the corridor. My heart sank. We might be trapped again. Then my eyes adjusted to the lower light. I glanced around. An old nursery, filled with cracked toys, faded drawings on the walls, and something else that made my skin crawl. A single cradle in the corner, swaying gently, as if rocked by unseen hands. "Mommy, it's too dark," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. "Just a minute," I answered, panic creeping back in. I approached the cradle cautiously, my feet quiet against the floorboards. The rocking stopped just as I neared. I held my breath, fearing what I would find. I peeked inside, and my heart twisted. An old blanket lay neatly folded, but nothing else. Yet a dreadful sense of abandonment filled the air, heavy and suffocating. I stepped back, the haunting feeling moving through me like ice. "Help us! Find the treasure!" The phrase rang in my ears again, more urgent, almost demanding. "What treasure?" I whispered, feeling hopeless as the whispers began to rise in volume, swirling around me like a storm. Then Lily gasped. "Look!" She pointed at the wall where a faded mural of children playing filled an entire side. Their faces were distorted, with sad eyes staring back at us, and in one corner, a shadow loomed. I didn't want to look, but I felt drawn to it. A golden glint caught my eye. A necklace, it seemed, embedded in the mural. My breath caught. Was this the treasure they spoke of? But before I could react, the door behind us rattled violently. The figure from earlier was back, and this time it wasn't alone. More shadows gathered with it, each one pressing against the door. "Find the treasure!" they all cried in a chilling harmony, the sound echoing against my skull. I turned back to Lily, eyes wide with terror. "We have to get out of here, now!" But before I could pull her toward the exit, the door cracked open just enough to reveal a pair of glowing eyes. Everything in me screamed to flee, but I was frozen, trapped between the whispers and the sinister figures. This is it, I thought. This is where it ends. But then, through the darkness, I remembered the doll. What if the treasure was more than just something to find? What if it was the key to escape? With newfound determination, I pushed toward the glowing eyes as everything faded to black. When the darkness swallowed me, everything shifted. I felt weightless for a moment, as if I was floating in a void. There was silence, a thick kind of silence that pressed against my eardrums. Then, just as suddenly, I was back. I stumbled forward, gasping. The room, the cradle, Lily, they were all still there, but now the atmosphere felt charged, brimming with a strange energy. Lily stood frozen, staring at the ground. I reached out to her, but she barely reacted. When I pulled her closer, she blinked rapidly, as if waking from a deep sleep. "Mommy?" she whispered, her voice tinged with confusion. "Are you okay?" I asked, scanning the room for any sign of the glowing eyes. Had they vanished? My heart was still racing, but the oppressive whispers had quieted. "That was scary," she mumbled, her tiny hands trembling. "Yeah, it was," I replied, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "We need to find a way out." As I turned to inspect the room, my attention was drawn back to the mural. The children now seemed more vivid, their expressions twisted in distorted fright. Their eyes, my God, their eyes seemed to scream. The necklace in the picture sparkled brighter than before. "Lily, look at that!" I pointed, my curiosity pulling me closer despite the unsettling feeling in my gut. She hesitated but finally nodded, moving beside me. "What treasure?" she asked, her fear catching in her throat. "I don't know, sweetie. We have to find out." I reached out, gently brushing a finger across the mural's surface. The paint felt rough and cool, like it had just been applied. Then, to my shock, the wall trembled slightly under my touch. Suddenly, the laughter returned, mingled with cries of, "Help us! Find the treasure!" I grabbed Lily, yanking her back as the shadows at the door pressed in harder. The weight of their presence was suffocating, and I could feel the chill creeping up my spine. "We need to do something now," I said, my voice rising in desperation. But the shadows were relentless. The door was shaking violently, making it clear they would breach at any moment. "Look!" Lily shouted, finally pointing to the corner of the room. A small wooden chest, old and dusty, sat hidden beneath a broken rocking horse. My heart raced as I realized this might be the treasure. "Stay here," I ordered, though I felt the gnawing fear that staying anywhere was dangerous. I dashed over, knees scraping against the old floor as I knelt before the chest. The latch was rusty, and I had to wrestle with it for a moment, glancing back at the door where the shadows wailed in rage. Finally, it popped open, the creaking sound cutting through the chaos. I lifted the lid, breath caught in my throat. Inside were old toys, but nestled among them was a small, ornate key. I reached for it, feeling an odd warmth as it slid into my palm. "What is it, Mommy?" Lily asked, inching closer despite my earlier warning. I think it might be important." My mind raced, but before I could process what to do with it, the door burst open, and the shadows spilled into the nursery. Their faces, twisted, lost, and haunted, filled my vision. They reached for me, crying out in unison, "Find the treasure! It's your only chance!" With the key burning in my hand, I turned to Lily. "Hold on tight," I shouted, clutching her hand. We dashed toward the mural, the shadows inches from us, voices shrieking louder and louder. Then I realized it wasn't really the treasure we were seeking. It was freedom. Freedom from the past that had captured these lost souls. And as we reached the mural, I could feel its power pulling us in. I've always liked treasure hunts, even if they often led to forgotten places. But this? It felt different. And with the shadows closing in, I just hoped we wouldn't become a part of it. I plunged through the mural, the energy around us crackling like static. The moment my body broke through, everything shifted again. We landed in what felt like a sunlit clearing, surrounded by tall trees with leaves shimmering, as if they were made of gold. There was an unreal stillness in the air, a stark contrast to the chaos we had just fled. "Mommy?" Lily's voice was small, filled with a mixture of awe and fear. She clutched my arm tightly, and I could feel her heart racing against mine. Before I could respond, a chorus of laughter erupted from behind us. I turned to see the ghostly figures emerge through the mural's surface, reaching for us with outstretched hands. "Help us! Find the treasure!" Their voices echoed in a haunting melody, blending with the gentle rustle of leaves. "What do they want?" Lily asked, her wide eyes reflecting both fear and fascination. "I don't know, sweetheart," I admitted, feeling the weight of the shadows creeping closer, merging with the sunlit facade. The warmth of the clearing contrasted sharply with the chill radiating from the figures. "But I think they're trapped. They need something." Desperation fueled my resolve. "We have to break this cycle," I said, gripping the ornate key tightly. The warmth pulsed against my palm, sending ripples of energy through my fingers. It must be a part of whatever treasure they're searching for. Lily nodded, her faith in me shining through despite the fear lingering beneath her surface. We stepped forward into the clearing, not daring to look back at what lay within the shadows. As we moved deeper into the serenity, the laughter grew softer, echoing like distant memories. The air thickened with a sense of purpose, guiding us toward an ancient tree standing tall at the center, its bark gnarled but majestic, adorned with glistening flowers that seemed to hum with an ethereal light. "This must be it," I muttered, feeling drawn to the tree. "The treasure has to be here." We approached cautiously, and I placed my hand against the rough bark. The warmth of the key intensified as I reached for a hollow in the trunk. Underneath a few twisted vines, I found a keyhole, perfectly shaped to fit the key I gripped. Mommy, Lily whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. Do you think it will work? Only one way to find out, I replied, my heart pounding. I inserted the key, holding my breath as I turned it slowly. There was a soft click, and the tree shuddered in response, illuminating the area around us with a brilliant light. Before I could register what was happening, the hollow opened, revealing a hidden compartment filled with shimmering objects, golden coins, delicate trinkets, and glistening gems. But what caught my eye was the sight of many small, faded photographs of children's faces. It's them, I murmured, the realization hitting me like a wave. These must be the children who were lost, trapped here. Lily stepped forward, wide-eyed. Are those their treasures? I think so, I whispered, feeling a deep sorrow for the lost souls. I reached for one of the photos, a picture of a girl with bright, innocent eyes, her smile frozen in time. I could feel myself being drawn in, as if the image held secrets beneath its surface. Mommy, can we help them? Lily asked, her small voice echoing the hope that flickered within us. I realized then that this was the treasure they sought, the acknowledgement of who they were, a release from their haunting past. It wasn't gold they needed, but recognition and freedom to move on. Yes, I said, my voice steady. We can help them. As I held the photo tightly, I felt a wave of energy surge through me, connecting with the shadows that still lingered at the edge of the clearing. Memories drifted around us, and I closed my eyes, letting the essence of those children envelop me. It was like 1,000 voices whispering echoes of laughter and longing, summoning me to set them free. With determination, I reached for Lily's hand. It's time, I said firmly. We need to show them that they're not forgotten. Together, we stepped back toward the gate of the mural. My heart raced as the ghostly forms shifted, their attention turning toward the light blooming from the hollow trunk. I began to speak, voice steady, clear. You are seen. You are remembered. The shadows paused, their laughter turning to a hopeful hush. Help us, they cried again, but this time it was accompanied by a gentle pull, as if they were yearning for release. Let go, I encouraged. You can be free. As I spoke, the treasure's light began to entwine with the shadows. One by one, the figures stepped closer, their shapes softening as they reached for the light radiating from the hollow tree. The laughter morphed into joyous cries as the children's faces illuminated in an ethereal glow, finally breaking free from the bonds of their past. With one final surge of energy, the figures merged with the light, vanishing into realms unknown. And in that moment, I could feel a profound stillness wash over us, the laughter now replaced with an almost palpable peace. When the last of the shadows faded, I felt a wave of exhaustion sweep over me, but also a sense of release. We had done it. We had helped them find their treasure, their freedom. Mommy! Lily exclaimed, joy lighting up her face. Did you see that? Yes, I did, I said, tears of relief spilling from my eyes. We helped them. But even as the last echoes of laughter faded, I wondered, what would remain of the stories that lingered too deeply? What became of those we couldn't save? Yet, even as I faced those unanswered questions, I felt a flicker of hope. Hand in hand, Lily and I turned away from the clearing, stepping back through the mural into our own world. As sunlight broke through the cracks in the door, the warmth enveloped us, igniting my spirit. But the fragrance of that eerie tree lingered in my mind, a reminder that some treasures aren't always what we expect. I never did return to that apartment. The neighborhood faded from sight as I moved to a new city, but the experience stayed with me. I carried the photos in my heart, reminders of all those poignant stories left untold. Each time I passed a children's smile in a photograph, I wondered if they had found a way to find their treasure, to escape the shadows of their own pasts. And still, I wonder, was it magic or mere coincidence? I guess I'll never know.